That's unusual.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion should be to exit the attorney-client session and reconvene the meeting.
I'd like to make a
be
motion
precise.
to exit the attorney-client privilege and reconvene the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, welcome back. I just went through a long litany of questions that I have, in trying to better understand the project that's being presented to us and, what brought you to this point to ask for variances for open space area requirements and the 75-foot setback from open space. So I'd like to open the floor up, to questions from the rest of the board members.
I'd like to ask a couple questions. Just trying to go through all the information that Noreen has sent me, because I'm the new guy on the block here, and get caught up. I'm just having questions about how we've gotten to this point versus the conventional plan versus the cluster.
Sure.
And especially, I find it intriguing when the conventional plan moving forward would not require any variances. I believe that's what you said before, versus to where in the cluster we have the open space and the rear setback.
Correct.
So those plans for the conventional, those were all done? Your company went through that process and you have those?
Yes, and they are on file with the planning board.
Yeah.
They reviewed those.
Is that something, Chairman, that we could get a copy of to look at? Is it our place to look at that, to better understand what we're going to do here with, these variances in front of us?
I think that raises a very good point, because not only is the gentleman new, I'm also new to the board, and it'd be very helpful to be able to see why you're presenting a request for the variances, because we don't quite understand with the conventional, it didn't have any variances that it proposed. So we just want to understand what the differences and what the variations would present, so we
Sure.
have a better full picture.
If you don't mind, I can take you through the process. So in your code, when you start a subdivision, a major subdivision, which is more than 4 lots, you are required to do what they call a conventional layout. Okay, so you go to the planning board, you do a conventional layout, how many lots you are allowed to get by right per the code. So we're in the SR10 district. Those are 10,000 square foot lots. We did a lot layout, many iterations of it, and we came up with 15 lots. The planning board asked for, we did a grading plan, we did a road layout plan, we did a stormwater plan, we showed the utilities. So we went through all of that, and the planning board came to the determination that they agreed, they made a resolution, and they agreed that the lot count conventionally would be set here at that number, 15, okay? Then your code actually, that's the correct legal word, but mandates the planning board to look at a cluster plan. So that's the next step. Regardless of conventional, whether you need variances or not, the next step is that the planning board is required to look at a cluster version of that plan. So that is the plan you have in front of you. It's the cluster version.
Right.
There's a whole process that goes through that. I won't belabor it, but the planning board is supposed to look at, is clustering a better alternative to the conventional plan? Are there areas of open space that will be preserved? Is there a viewshed that will be preserved? Are there wetlands, water courses, et cetera, that clustering would give the ability to save? So for instance, there was a wetland on this property. We don't have wetland, but if there was, instead of having houses go up to the boundary of the wetland, maybe if we clustered, we can provide a 100-foot buffer to that wetland. So there's all sorts of criteria that go into that. So the planning board was concerned that the conventional plan basically put the lots on an outer ring all around the property. So you went all the way up to where, I don't know, is that, yeah. See the shaded areas? Yeah, where the cursor is. Basically, we ran lots all the way around and we had lot tucked over in the other shaded area. So they were all spread out. They basically covered the entire parcel. And when we did the cluster layout, the planning board was much happier with that because it provided a buffer from Arico Terrace, which in turn provides a visual buffer from Orange and Rockland Lakes and the park down there by Orange and Rockland Lakes. And it also gave us the ability to plant throughout here. So there's a significant landscaping plan that's proposed for these areas. The other triangular area just so happened to be a fairly wooded location, and it also provided a buffer from the backyard. There's a couple other houses down to the south, yep, right in there, that gave them a buffer for the backyard. So the planning board liked this arrangement. It gave some open space, it gave some flexibility in it. It also clustered lots, and it, believe it or not, made the cul-de-sac road shorter by about 100 feet. So this was the preferred plan. Now the code gives the planning board, we don't decide, the planning board decides based on their weighing test of what plan they would prefer to see furthered along. After many iterations, they chose the cluster plan. We discussed about the variances, and they felt that the environmental benefits of having open space and not building out the entire property was more beneficial to the project than just the conventional, we'll call it cookie cutter plan. So they asked the applicant to pursue these variances which are before you. So that's kind of the code in the 3-minute nutshell. So that's how we did end up at this point. Now the cluster plan has been revised and refined probably for the last year with the planning board. We've added a lot of additional engineering designs and data, stormwater. I mean, we're doing what normally would be done through the planning process. Right now we're out there, we're testing our wells for water supply. We've made application for sewer district. We have municipal sewer connection going in. We've done our grading, our landscaping, our lighting. So all of that is in the planning board's application process. But this ultimately was the plan that they would like to see further. Now, depending on how we go with this board, wherever the outcome may be, hopefully it's positive, but if it's not, we would have to return to the planning board and I guess explain the reasons why we'd have to go back to the conventional. And the planning board does have the authority to waive the clustering provision. It's in the code. But they would have to have a reason. Essentially, the reason would be that we're able to obtain the variances for the open space and it's not a rear yard variance. The code requires a distance to the open space of 75 feet. So the lots meet the SR10 zoning district regulations. There's a few alterations to it. The planning board has the ability in the cluster to reduce lot sizes and to reduce setbacks. Lot sizes are all 10,000 square feet or greater in the cluster plan. Some of the setbacks, though, the planning board did reduce. So instead of a 35-foot rear setback to, say, the power line easement, it's 25 because nothing will ever happen in the easement behind it. So there are some other nuances that the planning board is allowed to do under the cluster provisions.
Did you just say that the planning board has the right to waive the cluster?
They have a right, yes, they have a right to choose cluster versus conventional. If they don't choose the cluster, the way that the code is written, they have to have a reason as to why they didn't choose the cluster.
Right.
What you're saying is that the planning board chose the cluster.
That is their preferred plan, yes. And I believe they've written some correspondence to you indicating that is the case.
Yeah, I'd still like to see those plans along with updated plans of the cluster, because I don't think, at least I don't have the updated plans of the cluster.
Yeah, no, you're about a version behind because we were at the planning board in June. So, I mean, I can certainly get you the conventional plans, and they're here in town, and give you the latest cluster plan. Yeah. Yes, that's no problem.
That would be helpful.
Sure.
I understand what the planning board's doing, in essence, rolling the dice But, you know, if we're going to sit here and focus on the open space, and we're going to look into what is an easement, what doesn't constitute an easement, you know, the facts are, you're not close. You have 1.7 acres of open space. So we're going to be playing with a gray area that, you know, we could talk round and round about.
Sure, and
So that's why I think having both of those plans here for however we're going to move forward is going to just add clarity
sure.
to what we're going to try to do here.
Yeah, and, you know, going back, when the applicant, you know, purchased the property and decided to do this, you know, we did an analysis. He knew the easement existed, okay? But what we didn't know at the time was that the caveat in the code is that the planning board chooses the plan, not the applicant. So the applicant came in, does a conventional plan, and gets 15 lots by right, and then when you get to the cluster, it's the planning board's choice. So it's kind of, you're a little bit farther in the process than it would seem when you do like a due diligence or your background work on that. So that was a little caveat, that was a little different for us.
We have plans that show the easement or the variance requested for the distance from the open.
Yeah, John, I think what we'd like to see is a, you know, a lot layout plan for this cluster, calling out the variances that you're requiring.
Okay.
Okay, so just show those offsets that do not comply, dimension them. Maybe show us a pictorial of how much additional land you would need to meet the 50%.
Okay. That's no problem.
In regards to that variance, you're looking at lots 1, 6, and 7, you said?
Correct.
Now, there are no numbers on the map, but I don't see how lot 8
If you go
would not
to
need a
the-
variance.
Go to, Mike, if you could go to the sheet prior to this one. It should give you dimensions. Now, the yard to open space only applies to lots with the rear yard,
Not the side yard.
correct,
Okay.
to the open space area. No, it should be sheet 4. It should have the dimensions on it. Yeah, these are all your dimensions.
So then, in that case, and
So for instance, lot
1,
Well, lot 1, its rear yard is the back towards the triangle.
oh, okay,
That
I
way.
understand.
That's what, 25 feet?
Correct.
Right. Lot 1, 6, or 25?
Lot 1 is,
7 are pretty
lot 1
clear.
is 25, lot 6 and 7 are the 35.
35.
And those are on, yep, right there. And those rears are going back towards the open space.
Well, I guess also, could you identify the lots that the planning board granted you less?
Yeah, that should be in the bulk table, Mike, if you just scroll down where the bulk table is. Down, yeah, it should be in that bulk table. There should be an asterisk. The one that had the asterisks represent the lots that the planning board has agreed to go less. And there should be a footnote that notes that. Basically, all the lots that have rear yards towards the easement. Yeah, it should be the second one, yeah.
The code is that it should be 75 from the open space?
Yes, that it should be 75 feet from your yard to
Right.
the open space, correct. Yes.
Why aren't all these, they're all 35, 30, what's the,
Well, you have the rear yards, that's just listing the rear yard setback.
oh, okay.
Okay, that's from the
It's-
lot line to the structure.
They are within that 70?
Correct.
Yeah, got
Correct.
it. Okay.
Yeah, so I will add to this chart, I'll point out the actual lots that provision affects. That's the 21C5H section, a bookworm for the code.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, I guess in the interest of moving this forward, to complete the application, prepare it, if you could provide us with, that narrative that we discussed earlier, where you explain what each one of these variances are, and a markup of the the lot layout plan showing those physical variances. If you do it in red line, just so it all jumps out, that would be helpful.
Okay. And then I'll get you the conventional plan.
Yes, and the conventional plan. So, one of the factors that we have to weigh is whether or not there is a reasonable alternative to what
Correct.
you're asking for variances from.
Yes.
So I think that's everything. All right, and once that information is in, and I think that'll get us closer to a complete application at that time, so that we can coordinate this with Orange County Planning Department for DML review, because we're adjacent to a municipal boundary line, so
Yes.
it has to go there. And then once we get all of that in hand, then we can talk about scheduling a public hearing.
Okay. I believe we can have all this together. When is your submission date for? Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I can get all that together for you by Tuesday. Okay.
all right, John. Well, thank you for coming
Thank
in
you,
tonight
John.
and
Thank you very
bearing
much,
with
John.
us.
Appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Take care.
Night.
Okay, so the next item we have on the agenda is Jewel Rutledge on Sunset Terrace. Please approach the board.
Okay, good evening, guys. Nice to meet you.
Hey,
Mr. Rutledge,
This is
it's been some time since you've been before the board, and we've had some new board members join since then.
Okay.
And even the old board members are probably not so familiar with where we left off on this application. If you could kind of brief your application for us, why you were sent here, what variances you're asking for, and what additional information you've provided us for this meeting.
Sure. Yeah, so I am actually with the contractor. Mr. Rutledge couldn't be here, but I am representing him in the process of getting some more information.
Your name,
My name is
for the
Romel
record?
Lasso from Avid Developments. Romel Lasso.
you came before us before, correct?
I was
a
in the
while
initial
ago?
Zoom
Yeah.
meeting back in, I think, January.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay, so basically this is a response to the violation he received for building without a permit. Mr. Rutledge wanted to replace a shed that he had currently on the property with a new and larger shed that became a bigger project than he had intended. When we received the violations, we submitted the application to the building department to get basically to pay the fees with the violations and also get the building approved. They came back with 3 variances that were needed. Okay, number 1 being the front yard not being compliant. Since it is a corner lot, both areas were being subject to the, I believe, is 50 feet. On the one side, we only have about 18 feet. 18 feet on the left side, yep. The second variance that we're looking for is the building height. Right now, that limit is 15 feet. We are at 15.9. And the last one, I guess they just needed to be verified, was the lot coverage, which is 25% here, the maximum that's allowed, and we're at about 21% with the new survey that was submitted to you guys.
You're under
You're under.
We're under, yeah.
on the lot coverage, so there's no variance required for lot coverage.
Right, so that was just a point to verify with you
Got it.
guys and make sure that that's where we were.
That lot coverage shown on the survey submitted? I was looking for it, I couldn't find it.
A bulk table.
No, it doesn't look like it was done. I think what Mr. Rutledge did was he calculated the square footage of all the buildings and decks that he has there and provided that figure. Right, I'm looking at the most recent one.
So what we're looking at here is a survey map dating back to June of 2017. And then I see the building in red. Is that on there by survey, or?
Should have a more current one from last month that I submitted to you. Would have been in the PDF and also hard copy.
So the updated copy should be the April 27, 2021.
Bunch of photographs.
So that shed was drawn on by and located by the surveyor?
Yes, in the April 27 version. Do we have copies for them?
Given the copies.
Yeah, I have a
last
copy,
month,
but
no-
it doesn't have the raised seal on it. Should it have the raised seal?
Is it updated? I mean,
I have the
having
one
trouble-
where it's updated April 27th, shed variance, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, those are copies Mr. Rutledge made. I don't know if you needed sealed copies.
Well, usually if the surveyor goes out there and locates it and makes an amendment, he'll usually make copies with the stamp seal on it for him to
I
give out.
think
But
one was submitted. I have a copy, and I think Mr. Rutledge has another copy. So he has 3 official copies.
Do you mind showing us that copy that you have?
Yeah.
We'll give it back to you. Just want to take a quick look. Oh, it's the same date. It's from June of
16th, 2017.
2017.
but he's got the date above it.
Oh, shed.
Yeah. And I could see that, and that's why I was just asking if there was a stamped version. That just goes to show that the surveyor was out there.
Okay, yes. So there is an update on it, April 27th, 2021. It's referenced as shed variance, and I see that they also show the fence line on this one that was not on the previous survey.
You have to be on our mics, please, when we're talking.
Do we know what the size was of the existing shed?
It was significantly smaller.
It was 8 by 8, I believe.
Yeah, it was just a regular, like, storage shed.
My notes reflect 8 by 8.
Just at first glance, this is quite a shed.
Well.
yes.
Is there anything going on inside this shed beyond being a shed? Because it sure looks like
I
a
do
secondary
remember-
residence.
I do remember from previous meetings that there was gym equipment in there
Ah.
on the first floor, the upper floor.
Right, he has some, I believe he has some gym equipment as well as just some regular storage stuff.
Besides, well, I could see the electric with the lights to the outside. Is there any other utilities going to the shed? Is there water or?
Or heat.
No, there's only the electric that would be, there's no heat and there's no water, no.
And the space is being utilized as a gym?
I believe so.
Levels, right?
Yeah, there's a lower level where he's keeping like, yeah, like lawnmower, just like regular equipment. The top part, when I went out, looked, you know, I don't consider it a shed, but I guess that's what we're calling it. It did have gym equipment and then, as you mentioned, other things stored in it. I guess there's no definition of what a shed is, right, Dave? Like,
I haven't looked up the definition section to see if there is one. I'm not sure.
yeah.
All right, so from your original appearances here, you,
Real quick.
Sure.
Mike, is lot coverage officially no longer part of this variance?
lot coverage listed on that updated version of the map, or any other bulk requirements for that matter. It just was a physical location of the shed and the new fence line that was provided. So that's still really a question.
Okay. Like I said, the figures I got were from the calculations Mr. Rutledge did on his own. So in order to get that, I guess, more formalized, do you request for the surveyor to put this in the survey, or? Because I know the request was made, and I asked Mr. Rutledge to do that, but I'm not sure where we lost that in transition.
Yeah, I mean, anytime an application is before us for a zoning variance, it pays to put on the bulk zoning table and the requirements for the lot.
Okay.
You know, and if the building inspector in his denial letter questioned the lot coverage, I don't have any information here in hand that says what the lot coverage is in comparison to what is allowed under the zone. So that question needs to be answered.
Okay.
There's no square footage on this lot, on the survey at all to see, to even start your calculation.
There are a number of structures that it would not be easy for a layman to figure out what the lot coverage is. There's an awful lot of irregular macadam and
Okay.
Just on the height building, which picture depicts where is it the one here on the corner? Like the back left corner?
Let me just pull it up real quick. So the picture that you have there is a height of 185. So yeah, so that's 15.5, and on the other corner, on the right side, it's 191 and a half, which is what the 15.9 is.
Building height up to the ridge line, and you know, that's not spelled out here anywhere, and you may not even need that variance from the looks of this shed. I mean, what's allowed is 15 feet in height. Got pictures of measuring tapes here in inches, you know? I mean, it would be helpful to take those 4 measurements and show us what they are.
Yeah, I can mark up the actual pictures.
Oh, no, not mark up the pictures. Put it together in a table, in a letter to the board that says, you know, these are the 4 heights at the building corners.
Okay.
And then again, also a summary of the impervious area on the lot coverage. The surveyor needs to understand what the definition of lot coverage is in the town of Monroe, so he has to check that, because it's like all hard surfaces,
Dry
driveways,
walkways,
walkways,
yeah.
rooftops, decks, patios, the works. So he's got to include all of that into the calculation of the lot coverage area.
Okay.
15 feet allowed. You just may want to double check that. You may have less than 16 feet. I don't know how that determination was made. You really have to measure also in the zoning code, it defines how to measure the roof heights. So you can check that,
Right, okay.
all right?
Those are important in terms of getting, allowing the board to figure out what variances are required specifically so that it can be noticed properly for the public as well. I know, like, Mr. Maldonado's denial letter suggested that the height was 16 feet 5 inches, and you indicated that it's 15 feet 9 inches. And then in one of the pictures, I just computed it out, looks like it's close, it's 15.95 feet. So knowing what the height, the proper height as measured by the code is an important thing, and whether or not you need a lot coverage variance is also important.
Okay. So now, in terms of the height of the building, you guys are okay with just receiving a letter stating what the height of the corners are, or would you like that?
The height of the 4 corners, and check the code. I believe the height is the average of the 4 corners, and you know, so if you're 8 feet high out front and 16 feet high in the back, you know, your average is 12. You don't need the variance.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So we just want to be clear on that. And then the other item that was questioned by the building inspector was the lot coverage. So without having that calculation, it's hard for us to make that determination.
Right.
Okay, so it looks like the construction of this shed is fairly well complete based on these pictures.
Correct, it's
And
completed.
so you're really here before us now to either get a variance to make it permissible or have to tear it down.
Correct. Hopefully not the latter.
Right. Okay, so if you can get those 2 clarifications for us, any other questions from board members? Your surveyor should probably be able to help you with those area requirements,
Yeah,
calculations.
Sprayers out there, he should be able to shoot the heights also. Should
Well,
be able to
I think
count.
he's already done because he's done the survey. You know, and then we have the photographic evidence of the measurements that Mr. Rutledge had taken. I think that's all we need to see.
Again, I would like to see a stamped version of the survey.
okay. I can request for 8 additional.
Your survey has a stamp there.
Oh, this one, yes.
That one does?
So if he can update that survey map with the lot coverage calculation and the bulk requirements table, and then, get that stamped version back to us. I realize it's back and forth with the surveyor again, but he won't require a field trip to do it. It's just updating the map in the office.
Yep. My name is Romel. Romel, yep.
We actually have to approve our January notes today or the minutes, and you're in that.
Yeah, from the initial meeting.
All right, if nobody has any further questions, Ramel, if you can get us those few updates.
Yep.
And, resubmit to Noreen, and we'll get you on the next available zoning agenda and try to resolve this and get this scheduled for a public hearing.
Okay. I will try for the deadline of next Tuesday. I will try to get all those documents for next Tuesday, I believe
Okay.
is the deadline, but if we can't get it back from the surveyor, then it would have to be for the following month of September.
Okay, do your best to get that
Yeah,
information back from the
absolutely.
surveyor in a timely manner. And I think, the way we're going here, do you want both digital copy, a scanned copy of the survey? And
Always submit both.
Always submit both?
Yep.
Okay. All right,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ramel.
Very much.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Drive home.
You have another applicant?
Yes. We have our town supervisors here.
Speaking of glasses, have you broken down and bought glasses yet? Have you broken down and bought glasses yet?
and a hearing aid. Okay, so that's it as far as applicants go tonight. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. And Noreen provided us with copies.
January.
January.
They were emailed.
They were
Not
emailed.
January, but not
If you
February.
didn't know, I forgot to print.
Oh, okay.
Next month, you're gonna have a whole bunch.
I just wanted to make sure that,
Now, I realized when I was coming up tonight, I forgot to email them to
All
anybody.
right, was that was in the same email as the agenda?
Yep.
yes.
Very
Yep.
20,
Right.
Get Austin on the phone so we can approve this.
yeah. Let's see, myself, Peter, Kevin. All right, so the majority of us were here for that meeting, but we'd like to get caught up a little bit if we can. I know that during
It'll be by August.
the COVID shutdown, things kind of slid behind schedule, but, if we could,
Getting there.
all right. Okay, if everybody just wants to take a few minutes to read through them.
I've read them through.
Oh, God, you're all ahead of me.
Yeah,
The organization meeting.
DDG
it
Realty.
was the first time.
Having read through the minutes. Or edit them in any way?
I'd like to make a motion to accept, to accept the minutes from January 26th.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Does everybody?
Yeah, they,
I abstain.
I know, because
if we had lost one more board member, we would have been sunk.
It would just go on,
Well, thank you, Noreen, for, getting us, heading down the right track with the minutes, and, if we can get a couple a month done as we move forward to get up to date. All right, with that, does anybody have any further matters to bring before the board? Any questions? No. Comments? With that, would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'd like
Make
to
a
make a
motion.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So adjourned. Thank you.